I will put on the first question. And so, are you familiar with the innovation procurement policy of the European Commission 2014? So it's a new topic for many of you. One expert. Madison, how many people are in the audience? Because I don't see anything anymore.
19.
Okay. And we are few not participating. So 12.
Yeah, I think that's
okay,
what
I
we
guess,
can expect, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks. Next question. What do you expect as improvement from an innovation procurement policy? And I think you can answer multiple times there. Nothing? Improvement compared to what? So I would ask my host to come to comment a bit on this.
To compare to the standard procedures that you have.
So maybe, Stefan, what you can do once we have a clear picture of this slide is take a screenshot for the discussion after, or I can go back to it, but I don't know if I will be able to have the text.
I am taking a picture.
Perfect.
This is really interesting.
Okay, any more inputs? We only had 9.
Will we talk about this now, or what's the plan?
No, the plan is to test a bit like the level of knowledge and expectation from people. Then Annabelle will give a short introduction to what innovation procurement is. And then we open the discussion, I guess, using also the answers here. And so this is why Annabelle is taking the screenshot so she can jump back. Okay. So Annabelle, it's your turn.
Okay. No, I think Stefan is taking the lead, right?
Okay, thank you, Annabelle. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. So my name is Stefan Korf, so we're going to go to the next slide. And we are experts on innovation procurement. It is a team. And we also have set up a chair on innovation procurement. First, it was situated at the University of Maastricht. And January 2020, it is situated at the University of Zaragoza. And on the right, you see the professors from the chair. Next slide, please. And of course, we also contracted for the EFIP initiative. So that's what I'm going to tell you, just a short introduction of what the EFIP initiative is about. So there's an initiative of the European Commission, and that for the really interesting part, Annabelle is going to take the floor. And she's diving into the step-by-step methodology and tell you about, in a short overview, the approaches and the methodologies that the European Commission is supporting. Next slide, please. So the EFIP initiative is an initiative that has been set up by the European Commission, DG Connect, in 2015. And innovation procurement is rather new from a legal perspective. So it all started in the beginning of 2000, 2004, 2005 with a group of international experts, and I had the honor to be part of that group, and it's called the Wilkinson Group. And the Wilkinson Group said, was outlining the way that contracting authorities could deal with innovation in the most broad perspective in the context of the old procurement directives of 2004. So that resulted in a report, and it was clear that that as such, so the recommendation on basis of that report was not sufficient from the viewpoint of the European Commission. So the European Commission started, done research, and I was also doing the research, and what we have done was trying to understand why specifically the United States was so successful in implementing the procurement mechanism, so there's the demand-side mechanism in steering R&D and steering innovation. And that research resulted in a communication in 2007 that was called pre-commercial procurement communication. And then the European Commission had the idea, well, you know, we have tackled all the legal issues, everything is clear, and contracting authorities all over Europe are so enthusiastic, so they will implement innovation procurement like that. Of course, that didn't happen. And then the European Commission realigned at that time, the FP7 program in a little way to ensure that they could also support contracting authorities to start a PCP program. And one of the first PCP programs on the FP7 was the Silver Project, and that was dealing with elderly care. Then, of course, on the Horizon 2020, a lot of programs have been set up to support contracting authorities with grants to implement mainly PCPs and also PPIs. We'll come to that later. In 2014, that was followed by the new procurement directives, in which innovation procurement was really embedded in that in the legal framework. And at the same time, with the procurement directive, there was also communication from the European Commission on state aid in relation to research and development, and that was also related to innovation procurement. So from a legal perspective, the 2014 procurement directives and the state aid communication is extremely crucial in order to understand the boundaries from a legal perspective, how to implement innovation procurement. And the initiative of the European Commission, the EFIB initiative, was set up to give actual support to contracting authorities all over Europe to implement innovation procurement projects. So next slide, please. So in EFIB, you can go to the website efib.eu. We have collected and gathered, well, all the cases, the best cases and the best practices all over Europe and also outside Europe. And that has been translated into an approach and methodology, and that has been translated into a toolbox. And the toolbox is aiming for policymakers, procurers, and legal advisors. So all the material you can download for free. And we have also, there are a lot of videos also on it. We showcase videos from the side of the contracting authorities and also from the viewpoint of the technology vendors. And we have also had some conference and workshops and also recently webinars. Last year we had a webinar on the relation between innovation procurement and COVID-19, how to tackle the issues from an innovation procurement perspective. And last week we had a webinar in which I was interviewing the CEO from the Dutch air traffic control in the Netherlands to understand the viewpoint from a CEO's perspective on implementing innovation procurement. And all that material, you can find all that material on the website of EFIB. Next slide, please. So the coming back to the 2007 communication and coming back to the approach, what you see here is the pre-commercial procurement approach, in which you have a multiple vendor approach. You see for phase 1 there are multiple vendors, and in the end of phase 3 you go to technology vendors, and that approach has been copied from the United States. So what we have done in 2005, 2006, we have studied the best practices in the United States, and we just copied the total framework into Europe. And the only thing that we had to take care of from a legal perspective was the issue of state aid or illegal state aid. And of course, that has been translated into the relevant rules and regulations on that aspect. So PCP, in short, not more than a copy from the best practices from the United States. We copied it to Europe, and now it's valid in accordance with the European state aid rules. And PCP is really about the procurement of R&D services. And if we have a definition on innovation procurement, that happens when public buyers acquire the development or deployment of pioneering innovative solutions to address specific mid to long-term public sector needs. And Annabelle will dive into that later.
Stefan, I interrupt because half of the time is already over.
Yeah.
How shall we approach it now? Because I think it's really important that the people can talk as well.
Yes, I think that Annabelle should give an overview of the methodology in order to understand it, also to make related to the TOL levels. And then we can have a question Q&A.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay. Annabelle, please.
I will make it really brief. So you can see there the step-by-step methodology, and this methodology is the preparatory steps to implement innovation procurement. And you can see here that there are 5 steps. Okay, maybe if you can just go to the next slide. Okay. So basically, you start with the needs identification and assessment, which basically is the public buyer realizes that they have a need that is not met by any solutions that are on the market. And ideally, this need should be something that is not really pressing, but something in the future, because bear in mind, for innovation, we need time. Next slide, please. Okay, the second step, and I will focus on this one and the next ones I will just mention, is the prior art analysis and the IPR search. And these actually are 2 different things, because in the prior art analysis, we are researching all the information currently in the public domain, whether it is IPR protected or not. And in the IPR search, we are doing a search of all registered intellectual property held in national or if possible, international database. So we do that after the first step, the needs identification and assessment. And the goal here is, well, they serve 2 different purposes. The prior art analysis intends to see if there is a solution already on the market. So then, if there is a solution already on the market, we just go to the market and purchase it. No innovation procurement is needed. But if after the prior art analysis, we realize that the need is not solved, that it is indeed a novel need and we need a novel solution, we can start thinking about our procurement strategy, which will be innovation procurement. And the IPR, on the other hand, the IPR search, on the other hand, what it does is guarantee that the technical solutions that will be developed will be susceptible to be IPR protected, meaning that there are not solutions or potential solutions that will be embedded in our solution that already are IPR protected. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, great. And here is what I want to focus on, because this second step, the prior art analysis and the IPR search, are extremely relevant in order to detect the technology readiness level of the solution. And this is extremely important in order to fine-tune the procurement method. And I will further and quickly elaborate on this idea, because the technology readiness level indicates the degree of R&D needed in order to make the solution, to make it to the market. So we will need more or less R&D depending on the technology readiness level of the solution. If the technology readiness level is low, we will need more R&D to go to the market. So pre-commercial procurement will be justified. But if the technology readiness level of the solution is 9, then we cannot go for a pre-commercial procurement. And then we can justify a public procurement of innovative solutions. Maybe I can have the next slide. Thank you very much. So just really quickly, you can do this search in different ways. In Corvers, we are using the Ipletics platform, and it's basically keyword search, and then you find all the available standards, patents, and relevant literature. So you can really assess in a quick overview what is the TRL of your solution, and you can really quickly decide for one or the other procurement strategy. Next slide, please. I really need to breathe. So the third step is the analysis of the standards landscape. And in procurement in general, standards are really relevant. But when you go to innovation procurement, standards are of essence. And I will explain this a bit and really quickly. Standards actually enable interoperability and compatibility between old and novel products. So this leads to cost reduction, and most importantly, this actually diminishes the risk of technology vendor locking, which means that the solution that we will develop, we won't be forced to purchase from just one supplier, because the product that we develop will be compatible, interoperable with other products or solutions. So this means that we will have a broader choice of suppliers. Extremely important. When it comes to innovation procurement, there might be standards already applicable, which means we need to mention them in our tender documents. But of course, if the technology readiness level of the solution is low, it's quite likely that there are not applicable standards. And then the contracting authority, the public buyer, actually needs to start engaging in standardization activities. And then the next slide, please. The fourth step is the open market consultation, which is practical from 2 points of view. The public buyer, from the perspective of the public buyer, it's positive because it helps to cross-check the previous steps. So the prior art analysis and the IPR search and the analysis of the standards landscape. Basically, we go to the market and ask the market if we are correct, if what we have found is correct. Or for example, maybe they know there is an existing standard and we have no idea about it. Now we do know. We also can check in general if the project is feasible as we have envisioned that. And on the other hand, it's extremely positive for the market, for the suppliers, for the supply side, because we are making them aware well in advance that we are going to award an innovation procurement contract. So, and remember that I mentioned that for innovation to happen, time is of essence. It's extremely important to allocate sufficient time. Here we are allocating sufficient time. We are giving the market suppliers enough time to prepare well in advance and to come up with really innovative solutions. The next slide. I am going really quickly. So if you have questions afterwards, please feel free to ask. This is the last step. So really briefly, the business case is actually a tool that supports the investment decision, so go or no go, for the innovation procurement project before, during, and after the project. In this case, we are talking about the preparatory steps. So before the project, it is actually helpful to determine whether there are enough economic reasons to really go for the project. So you compare the doing business as usual, so not going for the project, with going for the project, and then you decide. Next slide, please. Yeah, so now to the outcomes, really quickly. I just have 2 more slides and we are good to go. If you recall...
You have 1 minute.
Okay, I'm going for it really fast. So if you recall, I have just mentioned 5 steps, and these 5 steps are preparatory steps. But of course, we cannot forget that once we have prepared the contract, we actually need to award the contract, we need to draft the tendering documents, we need to manage this contract. So having monitoring systems in place, extremely important. And more in innovation procurement, you need to have experts that know about it. And once the contract is finalized, when we are talking about innovation procurement, I have mentioned standardization. If we have fostered standardization, we will need to make sure that the suppliers are really engaging in these standardization activities. We will need to make sure that the IPR allocation is correct and they are actually protecting IPR results and they are using the IPR results and commercializing the solutions. So this is post-contract management. And of course, all the lessons learned, we need to evaluate, have gathered the lessons learned and use it for upcoming procurement procedures. And the next slide, which is the last one on my side. So it's just a little and really brief summary as the previous steps. So the idea of going following a step-by-step procedure is actually helpful because we are decreasing the risk of innovation. So after each step, we can really assess whether we should go forward. But the good thing about following a step-by-step approach is that we really gather information from the market. We are going to be in a better position to know what the market has to offer, for which price, and what can we really expect that is feasible from the market. And then we will also know the technology readiness level. So then we can really select the best procurement approach. And one last little point, because we get this question really often, it's important to distinguish between the PCP and the PPI approach and then the procurement procedures. Because in the case of public procurement for innovative solutions, We get these questions very often. Is it another procedure from the directives? And no, PPI is not another procedure, it is an approach. And when you want to implement PPI, then you need to go to the procurement procedures described in the directives. That would be open procedure, restricted procedure, competitive dialogue, competitive procedure with negotiation. These two, if the contract is complex, which in the case of innovation might be. And of course, if you want to bundle the R&D phase, which would be the PCP, and the deployment phase, under specific circumstances, you can resort to the innovation partnership, which bundles the whole procedure. And that's all on my side. I hope that was quick.
There was a lot of information.
Oh, to make it quick, because we have 6 minutes left, I suggest I will unshare, but people on Menti, you can put your question there, either on Menti or on the chat. If it's on Menti, we keep them and we can also put them back on the, I will put them on the chat. And also I was thinking to put them on the LinkedIn group where Stefan and Annabelle can continue the discussion. Ute.
Okay, now I would like to know who are the ones who have already introduced it into their procedure, because when we did the first question, someone said it's already part of their procedures. Who was that?
That person.
There was someone on the, someone said it's part of our procedures. Didn't we have that answer? Who's that? The person.
Antonio, was it you?
No, not at all, because we learn, we are thinking to put in our procedure.
So who put it?
Who was, I mean, what did we have for offer? Because I said we have experience, but we've never done it. Then we had people who
and there was, yes, we are very familiar and we are implementing it.
Yeah, so this was.
It's you?
That's Anna.
Anna, but you're unmuted.
Yes, but Anna is an expert on innovation procurement.
Okay.
Ah, okay, okay.
She's cheating, huh? She was cheating.
Yes.
Ah, okay. So that means who has some experience then? I mean, so I was on the left side, the bar, there were more than one. One was me, and who was the other one? That was you, Antonio, then.
So, but we are trying to think about, there is also a project, I would say Horizon project, we will try with other facilities to implement just what Stefan and Annabella explained. But we are also internally evaluating with our procurement office, and we would like also to speak more about this topic, perhaps in the ENRIITCH occasion with also the other procurement people, to understand a little bit also more the details, because this was, of course, a short presentation. Well, the PCP and PPI probably will, there is, I told you, a project, a Horizon project where will be applied. As a European XFEL, we found also the innovation partnership very interesting for few cases, but really fitting a few cases, but in the best way. Yeah, so, and we are evaluating now.
Indeed.
So asking about the Horizon project, what is it?
Is it something you have already won and you're implementing? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's going to start. I'm not so sure that it's public still, but...
You've been awarded.
Yeah, I think it's awarded, yes. This I can say.
But if it's awarded, it's not going to take long before it's public.
I'm not sure. So since it's registered, I will wait April before disclose it.
This is actually maybe a question to Stefan. How much do you know about, let's say, indeed Horizon, upcoming calls in Horizon Europe? Because in Horizon 2020, in the first work program, there were dedicated PCP calls in the research infrastructure work program, where we actually at that time also tried to apply, but then we didn't have a case that we could materialize on time. That's not foreseen for Horizon Europe, for the research info, for our domain. Where would we look into something suitable?
Yeah, so as we speak, I'm in discussion with some different DGs on the programs, and also looking at the work plans. For example, DG Home is now putting an emphasis on innovation procurement because they're seeing the advantages, but that is on the first responder, security, and anti-terrorism and things like that. So we also see it in health domain, DG Sante, and we see it, of course, DG Connect, that goes without saying in a more broad way. I think the most important thing is that innovation procurement from an economic perspective is absolutely vital in the opinion of the European Commission. Because if we're not using the procurement mechanism as such, we're lacking behind with the United States, specifically with the United States, and of course, and now also with Asia Pacific, but mainly with the United States. So the policymakers from the European Commission made it clear that the demand mechanism is absolutely needed as a complementary instrument to subsidies and things like that, in order to speed up.
You're frozen.
Hello, am I frozen?
Yeah, to speed up.
To speed up, oh, well, to speed up the R&D investments. Oh, that's strange. Okay. Yeah, but yes, so depending on the DGs. For example, in the security, in the hardcore defense domain, a lot of initiatives now in order to implement innovation procurement. So you also see it in the water sector, in the utility sector. So there's a strong need for innovation procurement.
In the past, and I don't know, maybe Antonio, you can tell us, how does the Commission support your PCP? Because that's also the very nice thing about EU funding, because the whole, let's say, phase where you go down from 5 to 2 offers, and then you have 2 pilots basically, or demonstrators that you can develop, that used to be funded with 70% by the grant. Is that still the case, or what's the plan?
Yeah, part of the project, I would say.
Yeah. That's still the case. And so the very favorite conditions, if you compare that to all the conditions that companies can receive.
Yeah. So in that sense, it would be actually very interesting, I mean, to explore such a route, because it's, I mean, CERN got 2 of them, right? I mean, where you think they don't need it, but they even, let's say, abandon their own procurement rules just to be able to participate in a PCP, no?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have also seen praise and the supercomputing, HPC and things like that. So the supercomputer group is also working closely together.
Yeah.
So I would add that a part of the PCP PPI that, of course, like they explain very well, can fit in part of the project where you develop new things, and also with possibility to have more than the single project application. We discuss internally instead the innovation partnership that are usually fitting the case where you have few of kind for probably only your facility that does not really a market afterwards. But in both cases, what I see the advantage that I want to highlight is the definition of the specification. Well, the current way to make a procurement make no difference between what you buy in a canteen, like a cutlery, or the new spectrometer high end of a new facility. In the second case, the specification actually has a lot of uncertainties. As Stefan and Annabelle explained, you need a research phase to clarify also the details of this specification.
Okay.
I just want to add one thing. I think that's very important from a political and economic perspective, is that if you're following a PCP approach, that also gives you the possibility to state that the R&D needs to be done mostly in Europe. So if you do normal procurement, that's not possible, because you're bound not only to procurement directives, you're also bound to the GPA, the World Trade Organization government procurement agreement. So you have more limitations on that. But the beauty of PCP is that you can do that. So if you would like to stimulate European R&D, that is possible in PCP. So we have had massive discussion for different sectors. Sometimes it's not clever to do that, so because sometimes you're too dependent, for example, from technology from the United States, for China, whatever. But if you take that into account, you have the instrument and the tool to favor R&D in Europe. I think that's very important.
So, Angelot, how do we continue this discussion now, since we've run out of time?
Yeah, so we will put up the video and slide on our website. I would suggest to use our LinkedIn group to continue the discussion. It's a private group, and it's only dedicated to ENRIITCH community. So if you're not part of it, just either search via LinkedIn or send us an email and we will send you an invitation to join the group. And I suggest that Stefan and Annabelle, because now you're a member of the group, if you want to animate the discussion around it, please, and we can put some screenshots of your presentation. I'm not so familiar yet with LinkedIn, so I don't know if we can put the presentation directly on LinkedIn, but this is something we can discuss. And I think this is a forum where we would like to test also the continuity of the discussion, at least to start with, and then we can continue discussing with Stefan and Annabelle to see what we can do next in order to keep this topic up.
And maybe Antonio can then, once his project is public,
of course,
Yeah.
present it.
tell us more about it.
I have to check also this.
Oh.
Yes. And that will be a good experiment. Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you a lot, Stefan and Annabelle. Sorry for the little delay in the timing. And next week we will welcome Claudia Fender, Industry Board Coordinator at Eurobioimaging, and she will discuss the role of industry in technology development and testing at research infrastructures. So we hope to see you next week again. And since then, I wish you a good afternoon and a nice weekend, and so see you.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.